Okay, yeah, it's going live now.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll get started on this webinar for the Enfield Town Liveable Neighbourhood project in just a minute or so. We'll just wait for some more people to be able to join. Okay. So thanks again for joining us tonight. Tonight's webinar is on the Enfield Town Liveable Neighbourhoods project, and in particular phase 1 of the project, which is currently open for statutory consultation. So if we could please go to the next slide, I'm going to take you through the agenda for this evening, as well as some housekeeping for tonight's webinar, and then we'll introduce our presenters and the project team before we get into the presentation. So you can see here on your screen, we've got our agenda for this evening. Now is the welcome, and I'll go into housekeeping, like I've said. I'll also take you through an introduction and an overview of the Journeys and Places program, which is the program that's delivering this project. And then I'll be passing to my colleagues to speak about the journey to date for the project, funding, a presentation of the proposals, opportunities to get involved, and more information on the statutory consultation. And then we'll cover the next steps for the project, and then there'll be an opportunity for you to answer questions and hear from the project team. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of some housekeeping tonight, before we start, you'll see that in your toolbar on the top of your screen, there's a Q&A function. So please do use that tonight to ask any questions that you might have. We will be answering questions in that Q&A section at the end of the webinar, and we'll have plenty of time to get through those tonight. So post them throughout the presentation, that's fine. Following the webinar, we will be reviewing the frequently asked questions that are on the project page based on tonight's questions. So if you've already been on the project page, you'll know it, but we will be talking about that a bit later on. And any comments that we receive through that Q&A function, we'll be reading through and noting, but please do post your questions, which we can respond to tonight as well. We're recording tonight's webinar, and we will be publishing a video of that on the project page later this week. And as I've mentioned, we're talking about the statutory consultation for phase 1 of the project tonight. So please do provide an objection or representation to the draft traffic order if you haven't already. That is open until this Sunday at midnight, the 3rd of March. And you can find the survey at the project page, which is the link there on your screen, or write to us or email us. So before we get into the presentations, I'm going to introduce some of the project team. If each of the project team could just pass on to the next person, that would be great. And we're going to start with Aga.
Thank you, Liz. Hi, everyone. Welcome tonight. And my name is Agnieszka, and I'm a project manager for Enfield Town. Oh,
I think Aga might have frozen, but Dimitra?
Hi everyone. My name is Dimitra Kosmidou. I am a project manager working within the Journeys and Places team of Enfield Council, and I will pass on to the colleague Alex.
Hi there, my name is Alex, and I work for a company called NRP, and we've been supporting Enfield with the highway design for the scheme, and I'll pass to Tim.
Hi there, I'm Tim South from LDA Design. I'm an associate landscape architect with 15 years of experience in delivery of public realm across kind of a wide cross section of kind of contexts. With regard to this project, I've been involved as landscape design lead since 2020, We delivered kind of a wider public realm strategy and then developed ideas for the wider public realm across the whole town, and then have then focused on this phase one. I'll pass over to Mikey, I think is the last, is that right? Or not?
Hi everyone, I'm Mikey. I'm the communications officer for the Journeys and Places team, and I will pass you back over to Liz. Thank you.
Thanks, Mikey. Sorry, I did forget to introduce myself. My name is Liz Rhodes. I'm the Communications and Engagement Lead for the Journeys and Places program. So if we go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm going to take you through a bit of information about the Journeys and Places program. Like I said, the program is part of Enfield Council, but it's where the project is being delivered through. So this program, Journeys and Places, exists for a number of reasons. So we're in a climate emergency. A few years ago, the council did declare a climate emergency and a subsequent action plan, and all of our projects are working towards addressing this climate emergency. Poor air quality affects our health. So through our schemes, particularly those that are enabling walking, cycling, wheeling, scooting and other forms of active and sustainable travel, we're looking to address and improve air quality across the borough. Daily physical activity is important for us all. So across both children and adults in Enfield, we have fairly low levels of physical activity, which result in a range of health issues and pressures on the NHS. So we're really trying to address that as well. Transport has an impact on social equity and inclusion. So we really believe that transport is an issue of an equity issue and something that can enable improved social equity across our borough and across London. There are a high number of motor miles travelled that are congesting our roads. So over the past few decades, we have seen a great increase in the numbers of motor vehicles that are travelling on roads in the borough, and this has created a lot of pressure on the road system. So we're looking to address that and encourage people to use other forms of transport. Streets and roads should be safe for everyone. It's pretty self-explanatory, really. We do look to address road safety through our projects and working towards Vision Zero. So that's a bit of a summary about us and why we exist. If we move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we've got 4 key areas of the program. This one that you can see on your screen is delivering a walking and cycling network. So we look to improve various routes across the borough for walking. So this might be improving pedestrian crossings, upgrading footways, dropped curbs and other facilities that improve and enable walking, but also cycling. So some of our dedicated cycle lanes, but also our wayfinded cycle routes, cycle parking, and a range of other initiatives to ensure that we've got a network across the borough that's all connected and people can access easily from their homes to where they need to go. Next slide. So we also work in enhancing town centres and the public realm. So we have a place shaping function within the program that works on key town centres, but also high streets and other areas of the public realm across the borough. So really looking at how these public spaces and areas where people hang out and visit and live and work and study can be places for people. So greenery, seating, public art, and many other things in terms of improving those areas. Next slide. So we also work in neighbourhoods, making neighbourhoods safer for all road users to walk, wheel and cycle. So some of our projects here include school streets, which we have across the borough now, quieter neighbourhoods and other initiatives. I've already mentioned cycle parking, but that falls in here as well. So really looking at those local areas where, like I said, people live, they go to school, they travel through, and how we can improve those for people as well. Next slide. And the 4th pillar is informing and inspiring about active travel. So Engaging the community is a big part of this, as well as the services that we run. So we run free cycle training, doctor bike repair services, and the All Ability Cycling Hub, as well as a range of community events and activities throughout the year. So there's a range of things happening and the ways that we engage the community through those. So I'm going to pass over to Aga, who's going to take you through the journey to date.
Thank you, Liz. So I will just very briefly recap. Some of you will be aware of the previous phases of the engagement. We refer to them as 4 phases. All of that information can also be found in our website. Shared previously, this is really just highlighting the journey today, hopefully representing how we've community and shape the designs that we are carrying out statutory consultation on now. So you can see we've moved through feasibility, through the concept design. So these are early stages of the designs, and as they shaped, moving on to reviewing that feedback and shaping the final designs of the Enfield town. That work also included traffic modeling approvals, which are also part of the designs. And we then recently started detailed design. So or made.
Aga, could you just repeat that? Sorry, because I think you've just cut out. About detailed design.
Sorry, I don't know when you've lost me. I'll just maybe repeat from the summary report. As we've reflected on the engagement, we've shaped the final designs. We've also worked on the traffic modeling at the same time, which we've had approved here, and then we commenced detailed design. So this is a next level of how things are connected into that more detail. We've also commenced statutory consultation opportunity to make any comments or observations or objections, and the next stage will be to draft the report, and we have next steps also described and explained later in this presentation. Just briefly recapping on funding, again, we've mentioned that previously, that the project is largely funded by TfL, our sponsor, and also from SEAL funding. Over a number of years, so we are taking a phased approach, and we are continuing the discussion with TfL, and any phases that we are looking to
You're just cutting out
sections like the phase 1. Oh, sorry, I've turned my camera off.
Okay, could you just recap on the delivery of phases?
Yep, yeah, that was, I think, the last bit I've mentioned on this slide, that the project will be implemented in stages, in phases, and these will be established on individual phases to make sure that things work in terms of the network and connect with the phase 1 of the project. Can you hear me okay? I can continue.
All right, let's move on.
So this slide is just recapping on some of the design principles that were developed throughout the early stages of the engagement. So this is that Enfield Town is safe for all, offers transport choices, and is a great place to that you can camera off.
Aga, I might just recap on this one because you are cutting out a little bit. So I think Aga was just going over these community-led design principles. These were formed in 2019, which was the first phase of engagement with the community. So we went out and asked people, what do they want to see in the future for Enfield Town? What's the vision for Enfield Town? And from people's comments, these 5 design principles were established. So Enfield Town is safe for all, has a vibrant economy, celebrates its heritage, offers transport choices, and is a great place to be. And on your screen there, you can also see a word cloud of some of the words that were used and that we heard from people during that phase of the engagement. So these design principles were used and have been used throughout the design process for the project. They've informed the early designs that we presented back to the community in 2021 and future more detailed designs as well. So they've really formed the basis for these proposals. I think I'm going to hand over to Alex now.
Well, I think if Aga's still available, she was going to run through
Yeah.
this one.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so this slide is really just helping with a little bit of context of where phase 1 comes in. So we've engaged previously in the 4 phases that we've mentioned on the wider Enfield Town Liveable Neighbourhood project, which you can see on the screen. And as I mentioned earlier, the information is also on our project page. And this is where phase 1 sits in the context of the wider project. And phase 1, so I'll just go through the overview of the changes proposed within the phase 1, and we will talk in more details through those changes throughout the presentation. So just to list them, the phase 1 includes closure of the eastern end of the Little Park Gardens, where it meets the High Street. To facilitate that closure, changes to how the traffic will operate on Little Park Gardens. So we will show in a minute how the access will change to and on Little Park Gardens to facilitate that closure and that new square created. And also a new signalized crossing at the junction of Churn Street and Sansfield Road, which I'll show on the screen in a minute. We are also proposing to relocate the crossing point Cecil Road and upgrading it to be a signalized crossing. At the moment, is a propagation of diagonal path linking the crossing on Church Street and Sansfield on Cecil Road. And also we are proposing introducing a motorcycle parking bay on Burley Way and changes within the loading and within phase 1, so changes to waiting and loading. Let me move on to the next slide. So can the team hear me okay and see the next slide?
Yeah,
excellent. View of changes I've just listed, and my colleagues Alex and Tim will discuss this help. In the inset here, you can see the wider Enfield Town project, and this is where the zoom into that phase 1 area are the changes I've mentioned. So dedicated disabled parking on.
Okay. Aga, we might just go straight to Alex if that's okay, because you are cutting out again. Just for everyone listening, we are going to cover these proposals in more detail. So these maps are also available on the project page, but perhaps we can go to Alex.
Sure. If we move to the next slide,
or shall I move on to the next slide?
Yes, next slide, Aga. So as Aga mentioned, I mean, this gives us the overview, and we'll talk through this, Tim and myself. But as she mentioned, really the extent of the scheme to the east is up to Little Park Gardens. So going along the High Street, Church Street, we're remaining as existing from east of Little Park Gardens. As Aga mentioned, we'll zoom in and go through the individual bits of detail for the various locations. But I'll just hand over to Tim to talk about the strategic public realm.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, and thanks, Arga, for battling through those in and out moments just then. Okay, so I guess to kind of just a bit of a summary, really, I suppose a key move, as drawn out kind of through the consultation we've discussed, the 4 pillars that Liz kind of just mentioned and discussed, the public realm strategy and then subsequent design development, was the creation of kind of this idea of an invitational, accessible and legible walking connection, really from Church Street in the town centre to kind of Enfield's remarkable asset, which is Town Park. Alongside this, providing spaces to pause and seek refuge from kind of that hectic traffic environment, and generally provide kind of a cleaner, greener and healthier network of spaces throughout the whole town centre. Really kind of thinking, you know, there's a changing face really of retail and town centres, and this we now need to give a different offer, really, something else other than just expecting retail to kind of do what we've always had it do. The proposals within phase 1 begin to deliver on these commitments. Little Park Gardens, as Alex just mentioned, is stopped up and a new pocket park is inserted into this space. The new public space is kind of strategically placed along Church Street to provide an opportunity to pause and kind of take a seat on the sunny side of the street under the dapple shade of kind of that existing tree and other proposed trees that they're going to be there as well. Or tree, sorry, in that location. Generous footways generally with kind of reduced vehicle dominance, then kind of encourage movement east and west along Church Street, providing more kind of pedestrian friendly town centre experience, flanked by occasional rain gardens as well along Church Street. Critically though, we begin to kind of make kind of subtle changes to Library Green through introducing kind of a new kind of diagonal path, better defined gateways, and linked to that Town Park, as I mentioned. And then we have kind of a better coordinated crossing then at the far southwest of the corner. Alex, anything else to add there, or next slide potentially?
Yeah, next slide, please.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so we're at the junction of Little Park Gardens and Church Street. So currently vehicles can turn left from Church Street into Little Park Gardens, and as Tim mentioned, this is our sort of first public realm space. So we will be providing a cycle link through to connect to the school, but otherwise the vehicles would be prohibited, and I'll come on to how they access the area from the junction with Cecil Road. Also in this area here, we're introducing 4 disabled bays here to provide access for people, and that does require this section of road to become 2-way. Along Church Street itself, the key change here is there's a vast array of pay and display parking across the town centre. So as Tim mentioned, we're looking to build out the footways here by removing the parking. Obviously, there's still a need for loading to take place. So we've got a loading bay and also a further one more blue badge bay. So those loading bays are going to operate from 8 AM to 6:30 with a max stay of 20 minutes. And then on the south side, similarly, we've got a loading bay. We've got 2 blue badge bays, and then one of the issues that sort of blighted the high street somewhat in recent years is the number of motorcycle sort of delivery drivers, Uber Eats pickups. So what we've done is provided a dedicated motorcycle bay here, so that we can try and control where those motorbikes park up across the town centre. Just to say, with this loading bay on the south side, after those hours of operation, so from 6:30 in the evening, we will allow parking in this location for a max stay of 20 minutes to again service that sort of evening economy in terms of picking up takeaways and that sort of thing. I think that's it from me on this slide, so we can move to the next slide where Tim will talk more about Little Park Gardens.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, so focusing now on the new public space on Church Street that I think we can now formally call Sadler's Mill Square, following a council-led kind of decision. So that's great.
Sadler's Square, yeah.
Yeah, which references kind of the culverted stream below. So that's quite nice, really. We're glad we can do that. We introduce here, I think, a calming green oasis, really, providing opportunity for people to stop and pause with kind of generous seating opportunities, and a kind of a plentiful kind of paved surface, allowing for lots of like cross movement and circulation. We kind of thought carefully about how people move through and around this space to really make sure that space doesn't ever really feel crowded. The space is identified as a bit of a low point within the town, and is known to experience flooding. We've kind of driven here two approaches to mitigate the effects of flooding. So our approach to planting mitigates this through the formation of rain gardens that are designed to maximize kind of water capture and incorporate plants that are particularly suited to wet environments, but are also capable of withstanding kind of more arid and dry conditions. Rain gardens are rarely kind of at capacity and are often quite dry, so they need to be able to be very climate resilient and handle kind of both extremes, really. Furthermore, considering kind of that potential floodable nature of the space, the pavement is also designed as a kind of permeable surface, so that also reduces surface runoff to more and stresses on the more traditional kind of drainage that we have around the town. So it kind of should be quite self-sufficient with regards to how it manages water. Play and art, so which again references that kind of culverted stream below, is being explored by an artist at the moment, kind of as an exciting layer, which will kind of potentially emerge as kind of surface features and stepping stones through planting, those sorts of things, but is still in development stage, so it isn't shown currently. Kind of that's still being developed. Focus groups, co-design comments included the retention of the mature lime tree. Our proposal kind of protects that tree through shallow dig solutions and will improve its environment better with giving it better aeration and irrigation through that permeable surface that I just mentioned, kind of surrounding surface. The listed K9 kiosks as well, you can see they're retained within the space, and useful repurposing of those is being explored. So I think really in summary, kind of for me, Sadler's Mill Square kind of will become kind of that very much that cleaner, greener, and a bit more of a more beautiful threshold into the town when approaching from the north, kind of this kind of direction you can see now. Planting will very much frame the space, and it will kind of promote that opportunity to visit Church Street for reasons, I guess, kind of beyond retail. That's really important. The project kind of realizes the changing nature of the high street, and it starts to reframe Enfield's town core as an attractive destination, accessible and safe for all. So I think that is me exhausted all my comments on that. Next slide, I think, and Alex is picking up, I think.
Okay, so we're moving along the high street. So yeah, at the junction of Sarnersfield Road and Church Street, we've had a lot of comments that vehicles currently come quite fast around the corner from Church Street into Sarnersfield Road. So we're looking at to introduce signalised crossings on all three arms of that junction. And then further to the north, so obviously we touched on Little Park Gardens being closed. So in terms of how the traffic gets into that area, currently as you come up Cecil Road, the northbound movement into Little Park Gardens is bus only, and we'd be converting that to all traffic. So all traffic would be able to make the movement over. And a final change is the southern side of Little Park Gardens is currently westbound only, but you'll see here that we've converted that to eastbound. That's mainly sort of emergency service access to the school to ensure that the emergency service vehicle journey times aren't prohibited. So you've got the movements up to Little Park Gardens car park, and the residential areas through that are still retained as part of the scheme. And next slide, please. Okay, just expanding to the wider area. So we've got Sarnersfield Road. So we're looking to introduce 3 more disabled bays at the southern end of Sarnersfield Road. And then as Tim touched on, and he'll go into more details on Library Green, but a key element of the scheme. So currently we've got a zebra crossing on Cecil Road that's slightly off the desire line, and also we've got a sort of a large bush that sort of cuts off the route to Town Park. So the proposal is to remove what is affectionately known as Banana Island, build out the footways here, and introduce a signalised toucan crossing, so that we have a more direct route between Town Park, through the Library Green and up to the town centre. And also we're introducing some cycle facilities on the approach to the crossing and exit to enable connectivity to and from the town park, and that will be potentially extended as the wider scheme comes forward. So yeah, I'll pass over to Tim now to talk a little more about Library Green.
Thanks, Alex. I think we just jump to the next slide, the visual. Thanks for that. Yeah, cool. Right, so the first phase Library Green change focuses on kind of the introduction of a direct link through the space from Church Street and down to kind of Town Park. I think critically we remember that the general consensus from all engagement and co-design was that the space is kind of already well loved, and changes that we introduce here kind of must protect its special character, making what was always said effectively a good place great. Kind of think about making a good place great rather than kind of making any big changes here. So that's what we've tried to do, rather than making any wholesale changes which might, I suppose, erode that kind of distinctive identity. So we have new gateways combined with that kind of accessible, wide, generous kind of direct footpath. It really makes the idea is to make the area more readable, navigable, and naturally enhance kind of the legibility of the town. It'll also provide kind of a safe and attractive route, removing some of the existing hiding potential, which meets kind of more London-wide targets for women, girls, and gender diverse people's safety in public space, which kind of in turn kind of results in safer places for all of us. Kind of quite important there. The surface finish will match the same material as elsewhere within the Library Green, but however, kind of the width and the kind of the dominance of that path will kind of raise that as the principal route in kind of hierarchy terms, kind of the footpath route. So it'll be very clear that is the main route to kind of use. From co-design, it was seen as a kind of desirable opportunity to have occasional seasonal artisan markets, for example, small scale community events or performance. And so therefore flanking either side of the path will be reinforced surface level kind of a terrain mesh basically, which will kind of protect the lawns from this sort of activity, and you won't be able to see it. It'll sit kind of below the surface course of the lawn there. Could you maybe jump back a screen actually just to go and look at the plan just very quickly? So at the southern end of the path, because I don't think this is picked up in either views, the space to the south we've got outside the library is reconfigured as 2 secure spaces that are kind of usefully organized as kind of 2 different size enclosures basically, that could have different roles. A future piece of work will define these, likely part of a community project, be it a sensory garden, storytelling garden, nature, productive growing space, those sorts of things. There are lots of opportunities here, but we've actually got 2 spaces that link to the link closely to the library. Yeah, sorry, and then can maybe jump on 2 slides, I think. Yes, great. Okay, so then we've got the kind of the crossing to the south of Library Green will be a very kind of open and generous space, providing very clear sight lines to and from Town Park, further enhanced by the removal of the affectionately named Banana Island. The carriageway alignment here kind of will the carriageway width and alignment is narrowed, so it cognitively engenders kind of slower vehicular speeds and a safer vehicular environment. So kind of all these changes kind of combined, I think there'll be significant improvement for Library Green generally, and kind of encourage greater movement and access by people on foot, I think. So it kind of does tie in with those 4 pillars quite nicely. I think that's everything for me on that. Next slide. I think it's over to Alex. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, and then the final element of the scheme, again, I referenced earlier the amount of delivery bikers that are in the area. So what we're looking to do is again provide them with a site so they can be better managed, and looking across the area. Obviously, they do currently congregate up on Burley Way, so we're proposing an additional motorcycle bay up on Burley Way here, and that really concludes the proposals for stage 1. So if we move to the next slide. So just a very quick recap on the traffic movement. So that the key ones are that currently you can turn left from Church Street into Little Park Gardens. Currently it's westbound only on the south side of Little Park Gardens, and currently it's buses only northbound from Cecil Road into Little Park Gardens. And if we move to the proposed slide. So under the scheme, only cyclists would be able to turn left from Church Street into Little Park Gardens at this location. We'd make this section of Little Park Gardens 2-way to retain access to the blue badge bays that I'd mentioned earlier, and also the school. We'd make Little Park Gardens eastbound only, so that we're not impacting emergency vehicle journey times to the school. But obviously there's still the 2-way movement around the other 3 sides of Little Park Gardens to access the car park and all the residential addresses to the north of that. And to access from Cecil Road, we're now replacing that bus only movement with general traffic permitted to allow that movement over. Obviously, Aga mentioned that there was a lot of modelling done and modelling approvals, so we've got traffic data to understand how much traffic will be doing that movement, and it is relatively light, and we've sort of fed that into the models, the revised traffic movements, and there's a negligible impact on the traffic along Cecil Road, and that's been sort of independently audited and agreed by TfL. So next slide.
Thank you, Alex. I'll
Thank you,
pass on
Alex.
to Dimitra.
Yes, thank you, Aga. Yes, so the draft traffic order for phase 1 for the phase that my colleagues has now presented has already been published, and the survey for the statutory consultation is live until midnight on Sunday, the 3rd of March. So we encourage anyone who is interested to provide an objection or representation to the draft traffic order to please do so. On the next slide, we can see the ways that anyone can follow, anyone who wishes to provide any objection or representation can follow. And this can be done via the traffic the statutory consultation survey, which will be open until the 3rd of March, or via an email using the journeys and places at enfield.gov.uk email address, or posting the hard copy of the survey. On the next slide, we can see some activities that are related to the Enfield Town Liveable Neighbourhood project, which are the letters that has already been sent to residents and businesses. We can see the 2 drop-in sessions which have already been held on the 10th and 20th of February in Enfield Town. Then we have the exhibition exhibition of proposals at Enfield Town Library, which will be until the 3rd of March 2024. It is this webinar, and this webinar, as my colleague Liz previously mentioned, is going to be uploaded onto the project page if anyone wants to watch that later, or for people who weren't able to attend tonight. So we are keep engaging with stakeholders, which are including the Transport for London as well as emergency services, and we also have our social media and newsletters. Next slide, please. Okay, yes, here we can see the project page. This project is hosted at Enfield Town website. So please use the letstalk.enfield.gov.uk/Enfield Town link, where you can find on that project page, you can find the proposed plans, like key dates, the traffic order. You can find the frequently asked questions, which will be updated after that webinar based on the questions that we will receive here. And in general, you can see like any project updates related to this project. This is like how the project page looks like, and where my colleague Aga is showing, you can find the survey for the statutory consultation, which is live by midnight, the 3rd of March. On the next slide, we can see some next steps. So we have the statutory consultation report, which will be drafted based on the comments and feedback that we will receive. Then the decision process on phase 1 implementation will be started, and depending on the outcome of this step and this decision process, if we have a positive outcome, then the next step is the construction of phase 1 to get started, and then at the end we have Enfield then will be able to focus on the future phases and starting the detailed design works, as well as seeking funding for the implementation for the future phases. Thank you. I will pass on to the questions.
Thanks, Dimitra. So if you do have a question, I can see some coming in already, but please do post that question in the Q&A function in your top toolbar. We're going to go through some of them now, but yeah, that will stay open. So please keep posting your questions. There are a number of questions around enforcement issues that I can see. So one around additional security and enforcement around bike parking areas to ensure that there aren't any thefts, as well as behaviour of delivery drivers, so dangerous driving by delivery drivers. Aga, perhaps you could answer those questions in terms of the enforcement.
Sure, I'll try to keep my camera on for this one, but please do let me know if I'm cutting out. So in terms of the bike parking, so cyclist parking, these have been designed in places that are easily visible with the high footfall to prevent, or not prevent maybe, but perhaps limit these risks of theft. And in terms of enforcement of motorbikes driving off pavements, which was also a similar comment that we've received during the in-person event, obviously there's only so much we can do about that, with officers being deployed on site. What we are trying to do here is that we're trying to cater for those motorbikes that are there. They are going to be there. That's the direction sort of we are going. So what the proposals are doing is to design a space where they can obviously park and be there rather than roam around footways. Yes.
Yeah, and those enforcement issues are a matter for the police. So we will design schemes in a way that looks to address those issues, but at the end of the day, the enforcement is the responsibility of the police.
Thank you. Liz.
Okay. And what about another maintenance? Oh, sorry, not another maintenance question. A maintenance question is around the new garden area. I think that's referring to Sadler's Square. Aga, could you comment on that as well?
So we are liaising closely with the colleagues from the maintenance teams, so they are aware of the project, and obviously any planting that's going to be implemented will be falling within the remits of the prospective contractor. So if there's going to be any issues, we obviously will be passing on to the contractor, who will be anyway responsible for ensuring the plants sort of thrive and they are kept tidy and watered and so on.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Alex, there's a question on vehicle movements into Little Park Gardens and how that will work with vehicles wanting to go straight across if more than one vehicle is waiting. Do they use the left lane or the right lane? And how many numbers of vehicles?
Yeah, just in terms of volumes. So what we're looking at is around around 70 to 80 vehicles that currently do that left turn from so 70 to 80 vehicles in the peak hours, so that's the morning, the busiest hour in the morning and the busiest hour in the evening. It's about 70 to 80 vehicles do that. So they would be coming along here, so they'd essentially be using that central lane, coming from the left lane into the central lane. I mean, once you factor in the buses to that, you're looking at about a vehicle every 30 seconds on average. So so that's the sort of volume of traffic that we're looking at through that area under the proposed scheme. As I say, that's been looked at in the models to make sure that we don't have a lot of queuing that comes back from that point to block the traffic coming around the corner from Cecil Road, and that has shown to be that isn't an issue.
Okay, thank you. In terms of cycling, there's a question around where are cyclists supposed to be going and travelling? Where are the cycle lanes, and can they go over the diagonal path on the green? So there's no obvious off-road route in that area.
I can answer that question perhaps with Alex to add anything on the cycle routes. So as we mentioned, this project, phase 1 of this project is just phase 1. So on the wider Enfield Town proposals, the routes sort of helping and enabling cyclists to go through and to the town centre from east to west, and also sort of from south to north as well, will obviously now allow those connections, and this is just sort of an extracted first stage of that. So what you will see as part of phase 1 is just some of those connections or some of those routes. So the network isn't fully being implemented at this stage as yet, so you may see some individual components of that wider cycle network, like for example the crossing on here on Cecil Road, or the lane sort of cycle lane leading into and out of that crossing. And similarly, the diagonal path through the park is not designed, is not to encourage cyclists to go through the park by cycling. This is purely for pedestrians to use. So it's not the intention to allow cyclists to go through the town park here. But perhaps either Alex maybe would like to add something to it if I missed anything.
No, I don't think so. So we've got additional cycle parking at that southern end, so that route sort of through Town Park and across the crossing. People can park up there and then walk into town. And as Aga said, as part of the wider scheme, we'll be looking to enhance and improve the cycle movements through the town.
Thank you, Alex.
There's a question around flat level parking for elderly and disabled people who are potentially not registered with a blue badge. So in terms of parking it towards the west end of Church Street and easy access to shops there, where is the nearest flat level parking? Alex, perhaps.
Well, so we got Little Park Gardens to the north, which is flat level. Obviously, there are elements of flat level parking within the and blue badge bays within the Palace Exchange car park, and then further east we've got New River Loop car park. We've got some parking on Church Lane, and then the parking at the Dugdale Centre as well. Obviously, you know, we are aware that we're taking away that on-street parking, which is why we've looked to introduce within this section alone 10 blue badge bays. So the intention is to really try and support those less able people that qualify for a blue badge bay.
Cool, thank you. There's a question around why there is a proposed closure at Little Park Gardens to provide a rest area when there is one proposed within the Palace Gardens and Palace Exchange development. Aga, perhaps?
Perhaps I'll be Tim. So LDA have developed the placemaking strategy for the Enfield town, and throughout that work they've identified sort of routes to and through the town centre, and that also included existing opportunities to rest, and also that sort of resulted in identifying and proposing additional places to rest and for shade and for greening. So perhaps Tim, you would like to maybe build on that a little bit.
I mean, I can, yeah, of course. I think that's pretty much covered it though in a nutshell. I suppose that it's like the kind of ingredients of a healthy town centre really, and thinking about what one space to stop and pause probably isn't really sufficient for a town of this scale, and it's probably more about kind of having that network, and that it's kind of the value in the sum of its parts. So if you've got what they almost support one another, these kind of network of spaces, and just create that kind of the places to move between and around really. I would say that's really what it's all about, really, creating kind of a variety and a network of spaces.
Thank you, Tim.
Great, thank you. Aga, there's a question around the cost of phase 1 and what the cost is.
So at the moment, we anticipate the cost of implementation for phase 1 will be in the region of £2 million. So obviously, as the designs are firmed up, we will understand those costs in a little bit more details, but based on the customers as estimates we have, it will be in the region of 2 million.
Thank you. Another question around Little Park Gardens, perhaps for Alex. So regarding the traffic arrangement on Little Park Gardens, is there any possibility of keeping as much of that as possible one way? Is that a possible solution given the closure at the other end? And
well,
the roads are quite narrow.
Yeah, it's currently two-way. Sort of the only section where it was one way and we've introduced two ways is this section south here, just to get to and from the blue badge bays, and there's an access point here, so the traffic flows on there would be very light, and this section of Little Park Gardens was one way westbound, is now one way eastbound, but we're not introducing two-way working on the remainder. That is an existing feature. So as I say, sort of through this area, we don't anticipate the traffic flows to increase. They'll just come into it from a different route through.
Okay, thank you. A couple more questions for you, I think, Alex, on Cecil Road. So there's a number of crashes on Cecil Road from cars travelling too fast. How confident are you the new road markings will be sufficient to slow down the traffic before the Toucan crossing?
Sure. So this has come up a lot, and I think it's the nature of the existing road layout where you've essentially got a two carriageway road with hatching through the middle that sort of invites those higher speed vehicles. So what we've looked to do is narrow the carriageway down. We've introduced the cycle route here that will have elements of segregation outside, so there will be physical measures that will reduce the width of the carriageway, and that is on the approach to the crossing and also on the exit, and and we anticipate that will reduce the traffic flows down. As I say, it has come up a lot, and it's something we certainly will be monitoring sort of once it's gone in, and we can look at additional mitigation measures if needed. But I think, you know, the visibility with Banana Island gone, there'll be a lot more visibility across this area, so that corner will become more obvious earlier, and that natural tightening of the carriageway we've seen on many other schemes, that the tightening of the carriageway, putting physical measures to reduce the width of space that cars have, does naturally slow vehicles down. So we think that will be sufficient to reduce the traffic speeds.
Okay, and I think this is a related question also on Cecil Road. So it looks like Cecil Road's 2 lanes up to Sarnesfield Road, and that's already a challenging junction with 2 lanes coming out of Sarnesfield Road. Is that correct? And how would that work?
Well, so east of Sarnesfield Road, it'll essentially stay as it is. So we've shown a vehicle here because it is essentially it can currently be used as a traffic lane, although it rarely is, and it's more often used as parking. So that's really to indicate that the existing arrangement is remaining as is, and we've introduced these arrow markings here so that if there is the occasional vehicle here, either parked or moving along, they would need to pull over to provide space for the parking. To accommodate the blue badge bays at the southern end of Sarnesfield Road, we have built that out so that coming south, you would be coming out of here and turning right in a single movement. Whoever made the comment is correct, obviously, that currently this is marked as 2 lanes coming out here, but it isn't really suitable for that, because that second lane brings you into that sort of southern lane that is rarely used, and particularly as you approach Banana Island, that lane sort of forces you around the back. So really it is better suited, even under the current arrangements, to be a single lane coming out of Sarnesfield Road. So again, we've just tightened that up to allow us to get the blue badge in, so that's a single lane coming into a single lane.
Thanks. There's a couple more questions about the vehicle crossover and access point into Little Park Gardens. So firstly, there's one about pedestrian access crossing Little Park Gardens from the direction of Chaseside and Windmill Hill. Given the increased traffic from Cecil Road, how would that work?
Across this section here, I believe, yes. Yeah, so
that's
from
how I understand it, yeah.
Little Park Gardens. So, I mean, as I mentioned, with the traffic volumes in total are going to be around 100 vehicles an hour. So that, you know, if we round that up to 120, that's a vehicle every 30 seconds passing through that northbound. We've still got the island here, so there will be plenty of gaps in traffic from those vehicles coming through here. Obviously, we've got the left turners as well, but we do think, because there's not a through movement and it's not high volumes, that there will be opportunities in gaps in traffic to cross that. I guess we've talked about future stages. So one of those future stages will significantly improve this junction and put direct signalised crossings on each arms. Obviously, you know, there's only a finite amount of funding at this stage. So yeah, it's something we aspire to do to improve the crossings at this location, and that will come forward as a future stage. But as it stands at the moment, because it's not a huge volume of traffic, we think it is okay currently as an informal crossing point.
Thanks. And in terms of vehicular access, for traffic crossing Church Street into Little Park Gardens, who has the right of way? Is it the traffic on Church Street or the traffic crossing from Cecil Road?
So northbound, the give way. So northbound traffic here would have to give way to eastbound traffic coming through, and the other arrangements remain as existing. So if you're coming out of Little Park Gardens, you'd have to give way here, and then we've retained the sort of the merging traffic here. So both vehicles, if you're coming from Cecil Road, you can come around here at the same time as you come from Church Street. It would then just be a question of merging into the relevant lane if you're either turning right into Sarnesfield Road or going ahead at Church Street, which is essentially the existing arrangement at this location.
Great, thank you. Okay, if anyone's got any final questions, please post them in the Q&A function. We've got time for a couple more. Let me just have a quick scan. Can't see any more coming in. Anyone from the team want to add anything or can see any questions I haven't seen?
Maybe just to reiterate, we've had a couple questions asked during the pop-up events about accessing Church Street or pedestrianizing Church Street. So just to reiterate, there's no pedestrianization, so Church Street will still continue to be open to traffic. And it's just changes to how the traffic accesses the Little Park Garden, because obviously of the closure. The access will change, but Church Street will remain open to traffic.
Great, thank you. We have got a couple more questions in now. So Tim, there's one about lighting on the Library Green and across that new diagonal path. Could you comment on lighting there?
Other than to say the lighting has been carefully considered by a lighting designer, so that has been kind of integrated into the design. It's really kind of bolstering the existing lighting condition. It's very kind of pedestrian level lighting, given kind of the usage of the space. But I suppose to provide confidence that that has been fully explored and designed and integrated into the proposals. So lighting is well considered. It's really important that the place is safe for all at all times of day. So yeah, that's well integrated.
Thank you. Aga, I'm wondering if you could comment a bit on the timing of this phase, but also future phases.
Absolutely, thank you, Liz. So in terms of implementation of phase 1, the next step, as my colleague Dimitra mentioned earlier, is to draft the decision report. So obviously statutory consultation runs up to Sunday, then we'll be drafting that decision report. So throughout sort of April, May, we'll obviously have to review any comments that will feed into that decision report, and subject to positive outcome, so an approval to implement, we will be looking at implementation in summer, so later this year. Hopefully we can, obviously subject to, again, further discussions with contractor and so on, we'll be looking to have the phase 1 implemented before Christmas. And in terms of future designs, that will depend on funding being identified. So we are, as we mentioned, discussing and exploring different new additional funding for future phases, and that will largely determine timing of the implementation of the future phases. I can say that we are already looking at detailed design for the next stages. So obviously the layout largely we've developed, and is sort of looking at that next level of details for those. So we want to be sort of implementation ready or statutory consultation ready once that funding is identified and secured. And again, depending on what that funding is, we will be looking to carve out, for whatever word, sections of the wider project, making sure the section can be a standalone in terms of traffic operating and the network operating like the phase 1 is. So it's a bit difficult to sort of put exact dates for the future phases, but we have dates for phase 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, there's a question asking, will the proposed new disabled bays on Sarnesfield Road impede large delivery vehicles coming out of the Palace Gardens delivery yard?
Sure. So yeah, with any scheme, we have software that basically does a virtual track of vehicle movement. So we look at emergency vehicles, fire engines, we look at buses, we look at refuse vehicles, and we look at large delivery vehicles. So all those sort of vehicle movements have been checked to ensure that they can still be made particularly coming out of the service yard and round and down south to avoid the blue badge bays. So yeah, as part of the design process, all those movements are checked to ensure they can still be made.
Thank you. There's a question about, have we had consultation with retailers? So I can answer this, and Aga, you might want to jump in as well. So when we first started engaging with the community on this project back in 2019, we did start engaging businesses at the same time as with the community. So we ran a business specific survey to understand particularly their loading and weighting requirements, and spoke to a lot of businesses in person at that time and throughout 2020 as well. And since then, they've been a stakeholder, and we've engaged particularly with some of the larger businesses like Tesco, Palace Gardens and Palace Exchange Shopping Centre, who have previously brought forward their own proposals, as I'm sure many people are aware. Those are separate to our proposals. And yeah, we continue to engage all of the businesses across the town centre, and any of those are also welcome to participate in the statutory consultation. Aga, is there anything to add there?
Maybe just to reiterate on and sort of build on what you said, that obviously this is just phase one, but the consultation and previous engagement was done on a wider project, and you may see sort of scanning through those designs that we have actually made changes to the design. So obviously we've responded to some of the comments made. Obviously, we've had to take a balanced approach, but we have indeed taken comments on board and adjusted them. But obviously, within phase one, yes, you will not see all of these changes, but they have been definitely taken into account. And equally, like you just said, Liz, businesses, like everybody else, have been able to and are able to submit individually comments, which also have been and will be looked into.
Thank you. All right, well, we have run a bit over an hour tonight, so thank you again for everyone who joined us and stuck with us this evening. Just a reminder to please go onto the project page to view more information about the project, but you can also take the survey there, and that is shown there on the link on your screen. Ooh, it will be.
Sorry, just going to the last slides rather than beginning.
And you can also email us at journeysandplaces@enfield.gov.uk, or you could write to us, but any response to the statutory consultation must be received by this Sunday, the 3rd of March. So thanks again, and we'll end the webinar there.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks, everyone.